Church. Good morning. Yay! It's so good to see you all here this morning. Welcome to Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church. I am the Reverend Dayna Edwards, and my pronouns are she and her. Whoever you are, whomever you love, you are welcome here. Wherever you are and whatever your beliefs, your gender identity, your immigration or documentation status, or your disability, you are welcome here. If you are new or you feel new, you're invited to complete our newcomers form that will be linked in the chat. Do we have any newcomers here in person with us this morning? You can raise your hand so we can give you a small gift. Any newcomers? Not this morning? Okay. Welcome if you're new and visiting online. We're so glad you're here today. Our pastoral visitors are an extension of our ministry team. Helen Pakacek and Raj Mehta are online, and Kay Gottesman is here in person. Thank you for being here. I'm so pleased to introduce you to you today virtually, my dear friend and colleague, the Reverend Dr. Laura Solomon. Reverend Laura serves as the Assistant Minister of Spiritual Growth at our congregation in Silver Spring. She and I completed seminary together at Meadville Lombard Theological School, and she came to ministry after serving as a child psychologist and working with neurodiverse children. She brings her expertise in family systems theory to our service today. And we have a few announcements.
Of course, our sacred ritual of announcements.
Yes, every week.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias. So this next Saturday, we have our first announcement slide coming up. Next Saturday, March 26th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., we will have a virtual startup. And if you're wondering what a startup is, it's an opportunity for me and Cedar Lane to be in conversation with each other about what our multicultural, multi-generational ministry might look like together. And I know it feels like I've been here forever, so why would I have a startup? But we haven't had this conversation yet, and it's a really important conversation to have. So everyone is invited, and the information is in the e-news and on the image that was just shown.
The way we do church, especially in what I've been referring to as the before times, has fundamentally shifted, and this is an amazing opportunity to be in conversation with you. And y'all don't know this, but Reverend Dayna is on the forefront of faith formation in our movement. So it's a wonderful opportunity to be in the presence of someone who really lives the work, knows the work, eats, sleeps, and breathes the work as we look at what's emerging and best practices. So it should be an awesome day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Speaking of emerging technologies, if you haven't signed on to Realm Connect, our new connection system, I hope you will soon, because we have listened to you, and we're going to do something really cool using Realm starting on April 4th. You're going to see some details in the e-news later this week, but we are going to be launching a 21-day racial justice program utilizing Realm Connect as the way that we talk about the work together. So if you don't have time to show up for a series of classes, you're going to get a series of emails, just one a day, every day, with a little link that you can click on for a short reading or a short video. You'll have some reflection questions to do on your own. And we're going to talk about it using Realm Connect on our computers or right on our phones. It's going to be fun, engaging, meaningful, and transformative. So please do sign into Realm Connect today.
I'm very excited to be able to connect with people on a daily basis and really dig deep into the work that we do together in a spiritual way. This is the cutting edge of faith formation for all of us, adults included. So this is going to be a great experience. And so as we enter in this time together of reflection and remembrance, connection and community, we acknowledge that we gather as Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church on the traditional land of the Nacotchtank people, the people from which the name Anacostia is derived. They were a part of the Piscataway group of tribes, and we honor that the indigenous people of this land were here before us, are here with us now, and will continue to be with us into the future. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have protected it throughout the generations.
We remember those who were enslaved and worked this land without choice or reward. We remember all who've gone before, whose vision and labor helped create and sustain this religious community. In this spirit we gather. In this spirit we begin. Let us greet and welcome each other in the chat and in person.
Please join us in singing hymn 1003 in the Teal hymnal. Again, that's hymn 1003. Where do we come from?
Where we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we go from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going?
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from?
Life is a riddle and a mystery.
Where do we come
Mystery,
from?
life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going?
All right.
Wow, thank you, Quartet. That was awesome. Way to get us started this morning. Today, we share in a blessing for losers, risk takers, all failures far and wide.
Blessed are they who fall in the mud, who jump with gusto and rip the pants, who skin the elbows and bruise the ego. For they shall know the sweetness of risk.
Blessed are they who make giant mistakes, whose intentions are good, but impact has injured, who know the hot sense of regret and ask for mercy, for their hearts will know the gift of forgiveness.
Blessed are they who have seen a D or an F or a C or any letter less than perfect, who are painfully familiar with the red pen and the labels of less than, for they will know the wisdom of the imperfect.
Blessed are they who try again, who dust off, who wash up, who extend the wish for peace, who return to sites of failure, who are dogged in their pursuit, for they will discover the secret to dreams.
Blessed are they who refuse to listen to the naysayers, for their hearts will be houses of hope.
Blessed are they who see beyond the surface of another, for they are able to delight in the gift of compassion.
Blessed are they who stop running the race to help a fellow traveler, who pick up the fallen, who stop for injured life, for they shall know the kindness of strangers.
Blessed are they who wildly, boldly abandon winning, for they shall know the path of justice.
Amen.
Good morning. I'm Iris DeLaPaz, and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them. I'm the Youth and Young Adult Coordinator here at Cedar Lane. In the movie Encanto, the flame of the candle holds the magic of the family. I invite you to consider the magic and power of community held in the lighting of our flaming chalice. As our coming-of-age youth, Alex Del Sol and Maggie Clarkson light our chalice, please share in the chat where you are lighting your chalice from. Please rise in body and or spirit to share in the chalice lighting words, which are written in your order of service. May our faith be renewed and reignited, by Reverend Dr. Rebekah A. Savage. We light our flaming chalice each week with a simple spark to make holy our time together. With this flame, may our highest intentions be refreshed. With this flame, may we remember who we are and whose we are. With this flame, may our faith be renewed and reignited to guide our journey. Amen, and may it be so.
Our wonder box this morning.
I don't know, can I open it?
Yeah,
Or maybe
open
there's
it.
someone else who wants to open it?
Is there someone who wants to open the wonder box? Come on
All
up.
right, come on down.
Come on, we can have two openers.
Hi, would you like to open this?
Well, let's wait for our other friend
Oh,
to join us. We
okay.
have two friends.
Oh, outstanding. Maybe they could each take a side and open
Sure.
it together.
Yeah. You want to go on that side and you can come on this side. Ready, set, go. What's in there? Blocks.
Blocks.
Huh.
All right.
I wonder what blocks might have to do with what we're talking about today.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for opening that for us.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead and have a seat. So blocks, Well, that looks like fun. Will you help me build something, Katie and Kimberly?
Yeah, what should we build?
I know, let's build beloved community.
That sounds great, beloved community. We're always talking about beloved community, right? So this shouldn't be too hard. Let's start building.
Okay, let's imagine that these are the building blocks of the Unitarian Universalist beloved community. Should we start at the beginning?
Yes. Unitarian ideas existed throughout the ages, and during the Reformation, they really stood up for what they believed. Some of them were even killed because of their beliefs.
Wow. Yeah, there was a nun named Julian of Norwich who even wrote about universal salvation in the 14 and 1500s. That's like a long time ago.
This is a really good start. And when the Europeans, some of whom were Unitarians, started coming to native lands of the Piscataway and Patuxet people, they came with this ideal of setting up a society where each person had a voice in their church community. And that ideal is still foundational to both the US democracy and our church governance.
Awesome. I'm going to add some more blocks for that.
Thank you.
But wait, some of the Europeans who settled on this land were Unitarians?
Yes.
So some of them made treaties or covenants with the native people and then didn't honor them?
Yeah, that's quite possible. In fact, many of the early white U.S. Unitarians in the 1800s believed that assimilation into white society was the best way to engage with native culture. And in 1870, the American Unitarian Association accepted charge of the district covering the Colorado Reservation, occupied by various tribes of the Ute, and consisting of about 8,000 people.
That is hard and important history for us to talk about. There's more history, too. Did you know that Unitarians and Universalists were some of the first congregations to ordain women? In fact, yeah, Olympia Brown was the first woman to be ordained with full denominational authority by Universalists in 1863. And Celia Burley was ordained by the Unitarians in 1871. And today, women are the majority of our Unitarian Universalist clergy.
Yeah. Following the Women's Ministerial Conference, organized by Julia Ward Howe in 1875, 21 Unitarian women founded the Iowa Sisterhood to support churches throughout the Great Plains.
Yeah, but unfortunately, their ministries were not well supported by their colleagues in Boston, and sometimes they were undermined. And by the time Cedar Lane ordained Sophia Faz in 1959, it had been 15 years since there was a woman in ordained ministry.
Engagement with other marginalized communities has been complicated as well. Asian, Asian Pacific Islanders, South Asian, Southeast Asian are all communities that are often left out of important conversations around our history, power, and process. Did you know the largest Unitarian community outside the United States is in India?
I'm going to put a block for that, because that sounds good.
And I'm going to take one away because transcendental Unitarians drew from Hinduism, and oftentimes without credit.
I didn't know that. I do know that in 1992, the UUA Board of Trustees appointed the Racial and Cultural Diversity Task Force. And the only members of the task force from minority communities were African American.
Oh,
Did you know that Bill Singford was the first African American to lead a predominantly white denomination? In 2001. And Peter Morales was the first Latino UU president when he was elected in 2009. It's troubling, though, that the first Latina minister, Patricia Jimenez, was not ordained until 1994.
wow. This is kind of getting hard to build this beloved community we were talking about. But you know what? We all know this, right? UUs showed up for the civil rights movement.
That's
Yep.
right. That's right.
Yes, we did. I mean, there were actually 2 UUs that were martyred, which means that they were killed for a cause that they believed in strongly. So they were martyred in the 1960s, and that was James Reeb and Viola Liuzzo. They really lived their faith. And 60 UUs, including some Cedar Laners,
And my dad,
yay, joined Martin Luther King in crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma.
That is true. And also, when Egbert Ethelred Brown wanted to start a church in Jamaica and then later in Harlem in 1920, he was rebuffed over and over again by the American Unitarian Association. They wouldn't give him any funding, and in 1929, they removed him from fellowship. And the first African-American woman minister, Yvonne Sion, was not ordained until 1981.
It seems that our faith has a really complicated history with many marginalized groups.
Yeah, we could do the same give and take, adding and taking away blocks for LGBTQ plus people and people from colonized countries in Asia, like the Philippines, and also India, which was colonized by Great Britain.
When I think about what we're trying to build here, it makes me think a little bit about the movie Encanto. Now, in the movie Encanto, there's this amazing house that is filled with magic, the magic of the Madrigal family, and it looks beautiful on the outside. And it is a house that everyone wanted to believe was strong, but there were secrets and a history that caused the house to have cracks in its foundation.
Yes, in the movie, it isn't until Abuela, the grandmother, shares her history, as painful as it may be, with the younger generations, that the house and family can start anew with a stronger foundation and be healed.
I think we Unitarian Universalists can learn a lot about this deeper exploration about the cracks in our foundations.
Yeah, it seems like being in beloved community is not actually about perfection and polish, but more about honoring both the difficult and the joyous moments in our story.
I wonder if we can build a new way?
We can build a new way. In fact, there's a Unitarian Universalist Association report that the Cedar Lane Board of Trustees is studying right now with the congregation. It's called Widening the Circle of Concern, and it offers a blueprint for a new way.
So as we sing our middle and high schoolers out to their classes, please rise in body or spirit and sing with us hymn number 1017, Building a New Way.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world would die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
There is such great energy in this room today, and we are, right? Yes! We are singing together, our chairs are closer, our friends are online, and our other members are online, and we are still connected in this work of building a new way. And one of the ways that we build that new way is by joining Cedar Lane as a member, by offering a pledge, and by participating weekly in the ways in which we share the plate with the larger community. And would you be surprised to know that we give thousands upon thousands of dollars every single year from our Share the Plates to local and national organizations, and sometimes even international organizations, so that we can provide assistance to not just our neighbors, our members, our friends, and our fans here at Cedar Lane, but to the wider global community that our faith calls us to remember that we are inextricably connected to. And in the spirit of noticing the cracks in our foundation and building this new way by talking about things that are sometimes really hard to talk to, I want to talk to you about today's Share the Plate recipient, the National Alliance of Mental Illness in Maryland. The National Alliance of Mental Illness provides support, free classes and support groups for people who are living with mental illness and for families of people living with mental illness. And I want to tell you that we are in the middle of a mental health crisis because of this pandemic. And that crisis is in our children, our youth, our young adults, and everyone all the way through our life spectrum. This crisis is getting worse, and NAMI, that's short for the National Alliance of Mental Illness, is there to fill in the gaps, even creating online programming, pivoting like many of us did in order to meet these important needs. There's many ways that you can give at Cedar Lane. You can give by the electronic means of our modern times, by texting, giving online. You can even give through the Realm app on your phone or on your computer at home. You can give by PayPal or QR code. And I hope that today you will give generously as we help to build stronger foundations for all of us. Thank you for your generosity. Today's offering will now be gratefully received.
Say something to us, we can learn by heart. And when alone we repeat, say something, and it says, I burn. But say with what degree of heat? Talk Fahrenheit, talk scented rain. Use language we can comprehend. Tell us what elements you blend. It gives us strangely little aid, but does tell something in the
Let us center ourselves and enter into this moment, breathing deeply, calling upon all the sources of love that are within, among, and around us. We gather in this sanctuary of caring across time and space, a place set aside as a sanctuary amid the many challenges of life, a center from which we may gather strength to face these challenges with courage and hope, faith and love. Within our Cedar Lane community, we will be honoring the life of David Seidman this afternoon at 3 p.m., both in the sanctuary and online. Our caring extends beyond Cedar Lane to others whose lives are lost and whose lives are impacted by violence, calamities, and the COVID-19 pandemic in our nation and in our world. Let us hold these friends of ours, our companions in the world, and all the joys and sorrows we hold in our hearts, in prayer and in silence. As we enter the silence together, those who are mourning a loss or marking the anniversary of a loss of a loved one are invited to rise in body and or in spirit, or share their names in the chat.
Good morning, Cedar Lane. My name is Reverend Laura Solomon, and I am the Assistant Minister of Spiritual Growth at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Silver Spring. I am delighted to be here with you this morning. I was so excited when Reverend Dayna started talking about the idea of a service centered around the movie Encanto. I'm definitely not the biggest Disney fan, but this movie feels special. For those who have not seen the movie, it is set in Colombia and tells the story of the Madrigal family. In this family, everyone has a magical power, a gift. Everyone except Mirabel. Over the course of the movie, we learn that the magic is in danger, but Mirabel manages to save the magic by bringing the family together and starting the process of healing old wounds. You have likely heard the hit song from this movie, We Don't Talk About Bruno. If not, you'll hear it later in today's service. I find it fascinating and telling that this song has resonated with so many people. While the catchy tune is certainly a piece of it, I also believe we have a very human hunger and a very human fear surrounding the things we don't talk about in our lives. It's important to note that I come to this movie from my perspective as a white, cisgender, queer, Jewish woman. A viewpoint that misses much of the cultural perspective and nuance of the Colombian culture, or at least the Colombian culture as it is shown to us through this film, through the eyes of its Disney creators. What I do know, though, is the way my Jewish family has coped with many Brunos, the way we have adapted and learned to make it through without talking about many of the incredibly hard and challenging things we have encountered both as a family system and culturally as Jews. My bubby, my grandmother, would often greet us with things like, "You look so good, Baruch Hashem. Tell me what's good. It's good to be good, right? We only talk about good things." We only talk about good things. In other words, we don't talk about Bruno. As a minister and as a psychologist, I have found family systems theory to be an incredibly helpful framework for understanding many of the systems of our lives. Our family systems, but also other systems we are a part of. Our workplaces, for example, our churches, our denomination. Family systems theory, developed originally by Dr. Murray Bowen in the 1960s, enables us to look at the interactions that occur within any system and the ways those interactions maintain the balance or disrupt the balance of that system. An analogy I like to use is a hanging mobile. If you take a piece off of the hanging mobile, if you change it and move the pieces around, it will become unbalanced. That doesn't mean it can't become balanced again, or that it may not actually be better balanced in another configuration. It just means that every shift changes the way all the elements of the system hang in the balance. Many systems, most systems even, have a Bruno, a thing they don't talk about. This is often wise for a time and adaptive. There's no shame in not talking about the hard and painful things. But there comes a time when the thing we're calling Bruno becomes its own point of unbalance in the mobile, when the secret or the pain or the thing that cannot be discussed holds so much weight and power that it prevents balance and health within the system. It is then that things need to change. Often, when that unmentionable thing is brought into the open, there is disruption for a time. All the pieces of the mobile need to shift, after all, to change the weight distribution and balance within the system. Once those shifts are made, though, a new normal, a new homeostasis settles. I remember at one particularly memorable Passover dinner in my family, a generations-old family secret was revealed. There was palpable grinding and shifting and swinging back and forth as all the parts of the mobile, all the people in my family system tried to accommodate new information and a new understanding of the family. What also happened, though, was that once those pieces slipped into place, some of our ways of functioning made more sense. The habits and interactions of particular family members suddenly had new context. We were able to hang in a new balance, a balance that was moving towards one of greater freedom and health. Of course, family systems theory is much more complicated and nuanced, and it's important to note that it was developed by a white man who was looking at the inner workings of systems from his perspective. We still need systems theories that reflect the diversity of systems in our world and the myriad ways health can manifest. And this idea of the things that we don't talk about holding us back from freedom, liberation, and love is true across cultures. Let's talk about our Brunos.
I like to be in America, okay by me in America. I grew up singing that song, dancing around the house. Rita Moreno is a saint in my family. Many of you will recognize that from West Side Story, but West Side Story was one of the first ways that I recognized myself and my family growing up in a way that other people saw too. They had an Anita, a Maria, and they even said it that way. And maybe I wasn't so alone, and also, it was not my story. It was not my story. But it did help me understand a little bit of what my grandparents tried to teach me. My family that remembered coming here from Argentina, and those that came here from Sicily and Italy. And what they tried to teach me about how they survived in this culture. And for us, even on kind of both sides of my family, there wasn't much we wouldn't talk about. Whenever 2 or more of us are gathered, it sounds like 30 plus. Because any emotion, any thought that's had is suddenly spoken into the face, into the space and into the face, frankly. And Sometimes the response is, I will cook for you, which also means music and dancing. Or we just skip right to music and dancing as we laugh and we talk about the hard things. When I think about Encanto, I recognize again a space where I feel some connection, some familiarity, and I recognize
Good
that I
morning,
am
Cedar
not
Lane.
Colombiana.
My name is Reverend Laura Solomon,
Lin
and I
Manuel
am the
Miranda
Assistant Minister of Spiritual
is not
Growth at the
Colombiano.
Unitarian Universalist Church of
not.
Silver Spring.
And Disney,
I am delighted
most
to be here
certainly,
with you this morning.
isn't moving from the perspective of the Colombian people, and yet there is still a place where I'm able to find some connection, some recognition, and it sparks within me some questions about what don't I talk about? What's my Bruno, and what's my family's Bruno? And for me, it's not so much about what in my family we don't say to each other, but what we don't say to people outside of the family, because it wasn't always safe for us to be fully ourselves. And what, as your minister, have I not said to you? And it makes me think about Bruno himself and my reaction to Bruno in the film, this wonderful prophet, because prophecy is real to us in my family. We have prophets, people who are sometimes called clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient, and I grew up knowing that magic was real, and it wasn't apart from us, it was us. My mother, who is an armchair Unitarian, allergic to all things church, experiences the holy in every living moment of the day. She dances with it, cries with it, moves with it, and this is the story of my people that I do not always share with you. And that is where I've removed a building block of beloved community. But I believe in you, and I believe in me, and I believe in us. So I'm going to put that block back in the foundation today as we talk about our Brunos together. And maybe we can even dance some, and maybe we can cook for each other. But let's do it together. Amen. I invite you now to please rise in body or spirit as we sing together with the Quartet and Jasmin.
This one's not in your hymnal, but Reverend Katie invited us to dance. So let's dance.
We don't talk about Bruno, no, no, no. We don't talk about Bruno. But it was my wedding day.
It was our wedding day.
We were getting ready and there wasn't a cloud in the sky.
No clouds allowed in the sky.
Bruno walks in with a mischievous grin.
Thunder.
You're telling the story, or am I?
I'm sorry, me to go on.
Bruno says it looks like rain.
Why did he tell us?
In doing so, he floods my brain.
A beauty, get the umbrella.
Married in a hurricane.
What a joyous day, but anyway, we don't talk about Bruno, no, no, no. We don't talk about Bruno.
Hey,
Good living, fear of Bruno, stuttering and stumbling. I can always hear him stutter, muttering and mumbling. I associate it with the sound of falling sand. Shh, shh, shh. It's a heavy lift with a gift so humbling. Always left the boiler and the family fumbling, grappling with prophecies they couldn't understand. Do you understand?
A 7-foot frame wraps along
his back. When he calls your name, it all fades to black. Yeah, he sees your dreams and feasts on your screams.
Hey, we don't talk about
Don't talk about Bruno, no.
We don't talk about
We don't talk
Bruno.
about Bruno. He told me my fish would die, and the next day, dead.
No, no.
He told me I'd grow and grow, and just like he said,
No.
my hair would disappear. Now look at my head.
Your fame is sealed and your prophecy is read.
He taught me that the life of my dreams would be promised and someday be mine. He taught me that my powers would grow like the grapes that thrive on the vine.
Mariano's on his way.
He told me that the man of my dreams would be just out of reach, betrothed to another. It's like I hear him
Hey, sis.
now.
I want
It's
not a
like I hear
sound, not a
him now. I can hear him now. Oh, Bruno. Yeah, about that Bruno. I really need to hear about Bruno. Give me the truth and the whole truth, Bruno.
Isabella, your boyfriend's here.
Time for dinner.
She told me that the life of my
Getting
dreams
ready
would be
and there
promised
was a
and
cloud
someday
in
be
the
mine.
sky.
It's a heavy
Told
lift, and I
me
get
that
so
my
hungry.
power
Always for the
was
bullet,
growing like the grapes that thrive on the vine. I'm fine. He told me that the life of my dreams would be promised and someday be mine. And I'm fine, and I'm fine, and I'm fine, I'm fine. Don't talk about Bruno.
Why did I talk about Bruno?
Not a word about Bruno.
I never should have brought up Bruno.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Quartet. Let's give them one more round of applause because that was so hard. That was really, really hard, and they knocked it out of the park. So thank you so much for that. And thanks for dancing. That was fun. Yay. But we don't talk about Bruno. Talking about Bruno is hard. In Encanto, talking about Bruno, their truth-telling brother and uncle, it practically breaks their family. So we've been talking about some hard things, and we're going to keep talking about hard things. We're going to talk about Bruno and a lot of other things. If you need support, our pastoral visitors are here online and in person, and Reverend Katie and I are here after the service as well. So in my culture, as a working class Irish Bostonian, we said, you keep your head down and your mouth shut. That was our "we don't talk about Bruno" phrase. The cultural water that I swam in growing up in Boston in the 80s and 90s was full of hazardous material. Thanks to Ben Affleck, there have been many a movie made about the scandals that rocked Boston at that time. But even now, it feels impossible for me to name those scandals publicly. We don't talk about Bruno. You keep your head down and your mouth shut. So when I started my career as a religious educator in 2011, I was well-versed in not talking about Bruno, but I didn't know who or what the Brunos were in Unitarian Universalism. And I decided for Black History Month, I wanted to feature a Black UU for each day and post it on a bulletin board we had. And I also wanted to put it on this cool new social media platform called Facebook. So I approached two different ministers, and both of them said, well, Well, I don't know if you'll find 28 black UUs in our history. And their body language told me, keep your head down and your mouth shut. We don't talk about Bruno. And I felt just like the main character in Encanto, Mirabel. Like Mirabel, I was confused and perhaps naive. I said, well, why? Why don't we talk about Bruno? And like Mirabel, I was met with nervous laughter and the ministers kind of checking their watches and shuffling away. And like Mirabel, I felt like it was a matter of survival for me. Raising 3 children of color, I needed to find out why we UUs don't talk about race. I actually sat with this question for years, until I took a class with the UU historian, the Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed, and I heard him talk about Bruno, with his voice shaking and a tear in his eye. He said, we, UUs of color, we have always been here. We have always been here. There were, in fact, way more than 28 UUs in our history, black UUs in our history. And each time a historical white UU chose their comfort over inclusion, or chose their purse over the prophetic voices of marginalized people, those choices caused cracks in our foundation. Some of you may know this, but one of the biggest cracks occurred between 1967 and 1970. This was a big Bruno moment in our faith's history. Some of you may remember that time, and for others of you, this might sound like ancient history, like, way back in the 1900s. But it is a Bruno moment we need to talk about. There's no way I can go into all the nuance of what happened in our movement during those years. But when I asked why were there not more UUs of color, and I didn't stop asking, people finally pointed me towards General Assembly, or GA, in 1968 and 1969. So General Assembly is the largest Unitarian Universalist gathering of the year, and it's where the business of our denomination is conducted. So let's talk about Bruno. Let's talk about this hard thing. In 1967, black UUs began to organize and developed a black caucus. At the 1968 General Assembly, black UUs were promised $1 million over the course of 4 years, so we could, if we wanted, put another brick in our beloved community. But factions formed and fighting ensued as the system tried to rebalance its mobile. People's identities were formed and reformed through this rebalancing. It turned out, actually, though, that the UUA didn't have $1 million to give, and there was a contingency in the agreement. The UUA wanted the Black Affairs Council, the group of people to whom the money had been promised, to come back to GA each year to get a reaffirmation of the commitment from the UUA. Mark Morrison Reed reports that the back treasurer, Ben Scott, said, "It was also traumatic. I'm not the only UU who was irreversibly shaped by it. Thousands were born again. They came to a better understanding of the whole world through back. They came to a thrilling sense of the awesome potential of human society." Put another block. But then he goes on to say, "In our little UU corner of the world, lifelong friendships crumbled, marriages dissolved, careers ended, and congregations were factionalized." Take the block away. Reed says, Scott's words only hint at the intensity of the feelings. For many, what happened during those ensuing years would be nothing less than life-defining. Our dominant culture wants us to pick sides, to create a binary. In telling this story, I'm resisting the urge to distill it into two sides. I'm taking a note from Encanto. There are no good guys or bad guys in that movie, just complicated people with very complicated motivations. The same holds true for the UUs living through the events of 1967 to 1970. So how did Cedar Lane fit into all of this? Cedar Lane and other UU churches supported the Black Affairs Council, or BAC, by selling BAC bonds, B-A-C bonds. And the proceeds were used to support the projects of BAC. You can actually go right downstairs to our archives and see newsletters where they are selling BAC bonds here at Cedar Lane and also in Rockville. And the intensity of emotion at the 1969 General Assembly in Boston, I can't even put words to it. It caused BAC members and their allies to walk out of the building, to physically leave the space. I don't think that I can properly convey the level of emotion that actually still comes up for people when they discuss this particular GA. You can see people get flush and their bodies tense. It's like the scene in Encanto when the candle that held the magic of the family falls from its window and the house crumbles with it. Devastation is the only word that comes to mind. But instead of a touching moment of healing and truth-telling like we see in Encanto, many UUs tried to go on, to move around the cracks, to say, I don't see race. I don't talk about Bruno. And this way of being, walking around the cracks, continued for about 40 years. UUs continued to say, we only talk about the happy things. Keep your head down and your mouth shut. Don't talk about Bruno. Until 2017, when the foundation cracked again, and the chasm in our house became wider. But that's a story for another day. But know this, instead of keeping their heads down and their mouths shut, there was a brilliant group of UU theologians and thought leaders who came together and started gathering stories. Not only did they talk about Bruno, they embodied the spirit of the character Bruno in the movie, sharing prophetic wisdom from the heart with care and concern for this, our faith. They collected their work in a book called Widening the Circle of Concern, and they actually made it accessible by publishing it on the UUA website and offering an audio version as well. The authors state, while we work toward total liberation for all, we must acknowledge the hurts that can be healed, the faults that can be fixed, and the repair possible among communities suffering from the material outcomes of hundreds of years of oppression. When we acknowledge the hurts, fix the faults, repair in earnest, we, like the family Madrigal, can rebuild our spiritual home. As Reverend Laura says, we can recalibrate the system's mobile so that we were more equally balanced on both sides. It won't be easy, but the Widening of the Circle of Concern report gives us a pretty clear blueprint. So I invite you, with hope in your heart, into a moment of prayer and reflection, breathing deeply, releasing the tension in your body, releasing the Brunos that may be stirring and swirling in your brain. Spirit of life, we are muddied and bruised, and the journey has in fact been hard, harder than we could have ever imagined. We have lost many along the way. Help us, O Spirit of life. Help us to rebuild our spiritual home to include everyone's voices. Help us to name the hurts that can be healed. Help us to repair the faults that can be fixed. Help us to find a way towards liberation for all. Spirit of life, your divine power flows through us, within us, among us. You hold the collective wisdom of us all. You have given us our charge to create a multicultural, multi-generational faith community. When we stumble, whisper in our ear that we don't have to know how we will get there, but we know we will. We know we will. May it be so, and amen. Please rise in body and our spirit to sing our closing hymn, 1020, Wo Ya Ya.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know it is, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Oh yeah, yeah, 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 yeah.
Go in peace, go making peace, bowing to the mystery.